Cheers to a great day and this ice-cold Corona.
You know what would make this day even better? My grandma's carne asada.
Throw in some music.
We can watch the game. Or we could keep it simple.
Corona, la vida más fina. Get your Corona at ordercorona.com. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer, imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Where'd you get those shoes? DSW has all the shoes you need for whatever you're into. You know, like running shoes that give new meaning to personal best. Or everyday sneakers that make coffee runs look cool. Basically, DSW has all the best styles from the brands that always get it right. Like Nike, Brooks, Timberland, and more. Oh yeah, did we mention they also happen to be the perfect price? Find a shoe for every you at your DSW store and DSW.com.
Welcome to the Putback with Ian Begley here on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley, SNY NBA Insider, and we are here to break things down. Knicks NBA trade deadline, kind of all over the place for the next half hour or so. Got two great guests. First off, Cassidy Hubbarth, who really needs no introduction, but she is a host and reporter for ESPN's NBA coverage. And then later on, Jeff Johnson's going to join us. He's on-air talent and an analyst with TNT Sports, and he's a host of Casual Friday on Knicks Film School. Before we get started, be sure to leave any questions or comments you have in the replies, and we will get to some of those later in the show. As always, we're going to start with the baseline. Luka and the Lakers. I mean, this is a trade that happened days ago, but it totally shook up the NBA world. And Cassidy on Twitter, I think you wrote, "I'm aghast." I'm just wondering, where were you and what happened?
I mean, okay, so I was at home, and it was like my first night really at home to be with my husband, kind of like watch a show, throw something on. We just watched the Lakers game, and we're like, all right, you know, let's put on a show. Let's put our phones away. You know, like let's dedicate some time together, right? And then start the show. And of course, he falls asleep, because anyone in marriage understands that is what happened. So I'm like, all right, let me look at my phone. We're gonna have to rewatch this show. And I'm looking, and then I did what everybody else did. I get, this is not true. And I said it out loud, and my husband went, what are you talking about? I go, you know, Luka is going to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. He goes, that's not true. And then he falls back asleep. It's just like, yeah, shock and awe, as Luka said today in his press conference. It's shocking. Yeah, I just, you know, I'm trying to think, like, everyone says that this is the most shocking trade in NBA history. I'm thinking back to what was another time I had such a crazy reaction to a move. And I think it was KD to the Warriors. But that was free agency. That's really the only thing I can compare it to in terms of just not really believing it. And yeah, I mean, I think we all have the same story, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, I was at the Garden in the press room, and actually Knicks had played the Lakers that night. And so all the Laker beat reporters were in there with us.
Oh, wow.
And
yeah.
You can imagine the sounds and the reactions that were coming from across the room initially and a few minutes thereafter. And it was, still stunning. I still think, I mean, look, we'll see how it all plays out. But I just talking to people around the league, they don't understand the return. They don't understand the return of Anthony Davis, Max Christie, future first. But I actually think that Mavericks team is going to be really good if everybody's healthy. And so,
do you feel like people are disrespecting AD right now?
Yes, and I don't know if it's AD as much as like the lack of draft picks, because you know you look at here in New York.
They had two first. That was what the strange thing was, right?
Yeah. And like, because here in New York, Mikal Bridges, 5 first rounders, and
Right.
so you look at these other deals. I think KD was 4 when he got traded to Phoenix, and so you would just think Luka is going to give you a boatload of picks. I heard one team in the aftermath of it was going to do 4 and a pretty good young player, and they were surprised that they didn't get a shot there. I'm sure
all the teams,
28 other
right?
teams.
Everyone's mad that they didn't get a shot at Luka, because we're talking about a top 3 guy in his prime, with all of the concerns that have been put out. Like you still go for that. He just went to the finals. Was in the Western Conference Finals twice. He's only 25, about to be 26. Is 5, all NBAs. Like what? We've done all this the last 2 days, and Luka said himself, like these last 2 days have felt like a month, and they have, because how many times can you say this is crazy to see someone in their prime? But to your point, AD, Kyrie, Gaffer, PJ Washington, like that team probably will have more success now, unless the Lakers can fill the holes that obviously they have in their lineup right now. And we'll see if they can do that. Clearly the big hole is in the middle, which, you have one of the best two-way big men players in Anthony Davis being traded. So, they as Rob Pelinka said in the press conference, they have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and you're not going to fill that hole, right? You're just going to hope to get the best player available. And that's kind of where it hits the Knicks a little bit, because the Knicks have been canvassing, touching base with teams on backup 5s, including Jonas Valanciunas. And now you throw the Lakers into that market, and they have to be aggressive in that market. They have to go and get somebody. So
the fact that they still have that first round pick, you know?
Yep. So it adds competition for the Knicks in that market. I think Denver is going to continue to poke around the backup 5 market. So there are teams in there that are going to be calling the Washingtons of the world. Also, the Knicks had touched base on Daniel Theis. And so these guys, there's going to be competition for these guys. And LA is going to win one of them because they have to. So it's going to be interesting to see how that does impact things here locally. And I want to know, Cassidy, because it kind of went under the radar because of the Anthony Davis stuff. But Giannis said, he was talking about European stars. He said, I want Jokic to the Knicks. I want all the Europeans to go to all the big markets. This is my dream.
Messy. Don't you love how he said, I want Jokic to go to the Knicks?
I mean, he certainly raised some.
That was an easy one to slot in there, because there's no way that's going to happen. But maybe. Look, what he's playing a troll. It's he's on team European, if you will, and so he loves the takeover. And so I thought it was a classic line. Like you got all these guys reacting. This is an interesting shift. I mean, we have been in such a player. I don't want to say entitlement. Player
empowerment, maybe.
Yes, there we go. I mean, really, it's entitlement, but
yes.
But this was a shock to the system. Letting players know that it's I think for both the Mavericks sending a message that they were just done with however Luka was conducting business as a Dallas Maverick, whether or not you believe it was the smart thing.
Right.
The people who make the decisions there were done. And they made that move, and they understand making this move is not just a critical decision for the Dallas Mavericks, but for their careers too. I don't think Nico Harrison, thought trading Luka was just going to be like, okay, let's just get rid of our, global superstar at 25 years old, and not know, the high risk, high reward capabilities here.
And the
so
fan
I
base
just
reaction, I'm sure he knew what was coming in terms of that fan base because of who you're moving. And so,
I don't know if he expected coffins outside of America.
Maybe not.
But it was a bold move. It was a bold move, and if it pays off for him, and they end up, making a title run, this is a team that we keep hearing has had OKC's number a bit. Is Dallas afraid of the Thunder now with Anthony Davis and Kyrie, and what that matchup, what that 2-man game could be like? We don't know. We don't know what the Mavericks are going to look like. We don't know what the Lakers are going to look like. We just know that Luka's going to be there for a little bit. Now, people saying he's going to be there for the next 15 years. I've had a lot of conversations with Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is in the same pool as Nikola Jokic. He wants to play and he loves to play, but he's not going to be on the LeBron James playing till I'm 40 situation. Okay. But maybe LeBron could get him in proper shape where he can play a nice 10 more years.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that dynamic. And Cassidy, to your point about this thing being so quiet, I'll just say, without being too vague, like a significant stakeholder in this trade, in the aftermath of it, wasn't even sure about LeBron and how he, what his reaction was going to be, what he was going to do, what he wasn't going to do. And this is a person who, in a normal trade where things are discussed ahead of time, he would have known. But this was such a midnight shock that this person was not even sure where LeBron would go. So it was
crazy. The stage on Saturday night was crazy too. To be at MSG, the reporting late that AD wasn't even there, and then his wonderful post-game interview with Lisa Salters where he's singing AD's praises. It played out almost like a movie. And there was also moments I have no inside information. I don't know what LeBron's going to do, but I was watching that game and it just looked like he was really soaking in playing at MSG and thinking my times under these lights are winding down. I don't know if I was reading into that, but as a viewer, as someone who loves the NBA, that's how I was viewing it as a fan. And it was pure cinema. Now at the expense of the Knicks, of course, but at the same time, it's it was pretty surreal thinking about that. And like you said, all those Lakers reporters in the Knicks media room afterwards, and then this trade comes about. It's been a crazy few days. Take that, Super Bowl. That's all I'm trying to say. We'll steal our thunder on Christmas Day. We'll steal your thunder on Media Day.
I'll give it right back to you. Yeah, I like that. I like that point. We're going to just kind of set things up for the Knicks here in terms of the trade deadline. The Knicks today cannot trade Ariel Hukporti. Tomorrow, I believe they can, or Thursday, they certainly can. There was a restriction on his deal. They cannot trade Landry Shamet, restrictions on his deal. Everybody else is available. They have some expiring deals in Precious Achua, Campaign, Jericho Sims, and just the names that I've been hearing. We talked about Jonas Valanciunas, Daniel Tice. I don't think Clint Capella, the money wouldn't work, but it all starts with Mitchell Robinson, I think, and the Knicks' confidence in Mitchell Robinson. And do they think that he can be the guy ultimately whenever he gets back on the floor consistently? Can they count on him? I'm not sure.
Taking their time with him, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And you hear, as you would in any organization, different, voices have different opinions on Mitchell Robinson, but it's interesting because I talked to one team earlier today, and they said that it was communicated to them that the Knicks aren't talking about Mitchell Robinson. Now, this is just one team. Doesn't mean the Knicks are not talking about Mitchell Robinson to any teams. But I found it fascinating when I was talking to him. They said hey, now they said no Mitchell Robinson. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, it all starts there with this this Knick deadline. And look, there's other places they could go, backup wing. But right now, I mean, for the first time, not in a long time, because it was this case last year too, but you haven't had this kind of deadline with the Knicks often in the last 20 years, where the roster's set, the players who they want are pretty much in place, and it's just kind of moves like on the back end trying to figure out how to fill a hole or two. This is not a place the Knicks are usually in at this time of year. So for that alone, I do think the regime deserves credit for getting the team to this place. What do you make of where the Knicks are right now?
I mean, they are a contender. That's putting it simply. In terms of the Mitchell Robinson situation, I mean, I guess you could be in two camps, where he is going to be their trade deadline acquisition. Believing that he is the necessary piece for a team that has been struggling with offensive boards, and he arguably being the best at that skill, and that being a big source of the team's success last year too, even, big on the offensive boards, which obviously Isaiah Hartenstein had a big part of that too. But, when Mitch Robinson is good, he's really good.
Yeah.
And, where I am with this team, I think the understanding that their starting five is one of the best starting fives in the league, but the minutes on them are all, you've heard this story. I'm sure you've written this story several times. And so when you see that injury to OG, that MSG was so quiet after that, because that's kind of what derailed the season last year.
Right.
Started this, downward spiral of guys just being a little too beat up. And so I hate to revisit that, because I'm sure Knicks fans listening are like, yeah, we get it. These guys are being run into the ground, but the numbers are there. They have 3 of the top 5, all of their guys are in the top 10 in usage. So it's just, where am I? They got the talent. They really do. I mean, how great has Karl Anthony Towns been? I remember having a game with Doris, Mike Breen, pregame, we were talking, even with, Chris Finch, and just the thought of could this guy survive this market? How is he going to handle, being, yes, he's from, the area, but how is he going to handle the scrutiny that comes with this market? And he has stepped up to the plate and then some. Whatever if you want to have that conversation of who's been the MVP of this team so far, I think that's another way to answer that question of how good has this team been. You have 2 all-star starters, and deservedly so. And I was on a mini campaign to put Josh Hart in the All-Star game, even though everybody decided it was quite impossible, but not if you watch Knicks games. I mean, Josh Hart is, your favorite player's favorite player. That guy does everything. He is everywhere, all the time, all at once. And I think that that's another kind of concern is, these guys play so hard and they're playing so many minutes. So, though, I guess those are the 2 camps. It's all right, Mitchell Robinson, he would be a massive acquisition, if you will. And at the same time, do you need to build up your depth? Even though Miles McBride has been fantastic off the bench, you're seeing,
very good. Yeah.
You're seeing guys. Precious Chua also has been has really shown up in this second half of the first half of the season, if that makes sense mathematically. And those guys though can also be some interesting trade assets as well. So it's a long-winded take for there's a lot of interesting things about this team, and there's a reason why there's so much excitement around the Knicks. But there's concerns. I mean, there's concerns for every team.
Right. And well, the fact that you said that second to last sentence where there's reason to be excited, I think that to me goes back to Jaylen Brunson, and just kind of, it starts with him. It started with him. We could talk about him for hours, but I wanted to ask you something, because I asked JJ Redick the other day what makes Jaylen Brunson, what makes him able to kind of handle this the way he's handled it. And he talked about his confidence, his makeup, kind of knowing who he is and being confident in who he is. And he said, he's in that way the perfect star for New York City. I know you spent a lot of time around Jaylen, Rick Brunson. I'm just wondering your impression of him based on your interactions.
I mean, he's incredible. He's just, the poise. I like that explanation of him. Like, he's so comfortable with who he is. He's so comfortable with being a leader, knowing what it takes to be a winner. And he's a dog. And so, when you line all those characteristics up, I mean, that kind of also defines New York City, right? Like this is a city that, that tests you every day. And Jaylen, as we know, has been tested every day of his life, being the son of Rick Brunson. So, and Sandra, by the way, Sandra's not playing around either. So it's hard to kind of, I'm sure you more than me, have thought a lot about like who's the superstar that can represent the New York Knicks, especially when they were struggling to kind of find that. I don't know if Brunson kind of fit that, whatever cutout would have been in your mind. But, and then that was kind of the reaction when he came to the Knicks. Like, really? Is that enough?
Yeah.
And I think that's star. Yeah. And I think that's probably the perfect person for the Knicks. It's not, he's not about the spotlight, because if you lean into the spotlight too much, it can blur you out. And, Jaylen, just a little bit, like, even though I've known Jaylen for a long time, like, even he doesn't give me anything in the post-game interview. It's he's just straightforward. And so I'm like, just a little something, a little extra something to it. Give me a little pizzazz that I know you have with, podcast post, but no, he knows he is a professional basketball player. Understanding where the league is right now, like, it's hard there's very few just professional basketball player, and that's what he is. So now we're going to bring on my buddy, Jeff Johnson. He's joining us mid-show, kind enough to join us mid-show. He's an on-air talent and analyst with TNT Sports and the host of Casual Friday on Knicks Film School. Before we dive in with Jeff, I want to remind you guys, we are in podcast form, so you get us anywhere you download your podcasts, and also throw your questions in those comment sections. We're going to get to those a little bit later in a segment called the Talk Back. And now we are going to a segment called What We Learned, which is presented by Binghamton University. Binghamton University was named the top school in the SUNY system, according to recent rankings from the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. Visit binghamton.edu for more. So, Mitchell Robinson cleared for contact, not yet 5-on-5. That's where we're going to go with what we learned. This is a big development for the Knicks. This is what they've been waiting on. Obviously, as Cassidy alluded to earlier, they have taken their time here. They're being careful. And so the next steps for Robinson is to wake up the morning after contact and feel good, and then eventually 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5 in a contact setting. So you're not going to see him back tomorrow. He still has hurdles to clear, but this was a big step for him. And, we talk about the trade market. We mentioned Valanciunas earlier, Daniel Tice earlier.
I would imagine even an Alex Len, maybe they check in on their Gershon Yabusele. I should mention his name. I didn't mention him before. They've certainly checked in with Philly on him. Talented player. It's going to be interesting to see where the Sixers go there. But Cassidy, you said Mitchell Robinson, if he's healthy, he's your best trade deadline acquisition. Jeff, I'm curious for you. Put your Leon Rose suit on for a second.
Okay. Does it come with the salary too, or nah? I'll put it on for you though. Yeah, I'll put it on for you.
I can't throw you a check. So. Mitchell Robinson, are you trusting him? Are you going with him as your backup 5 rest of the year into the postseason, or are you worried about the injury history to the point where you go ahead and trade for a backup big man?
Well, if I'm thinking in terms of what Leon Rose has built over this past 3, 4, 5 year span, I'm thinking we're rolling with Mitchell Robinson because this is year 1 of a 4-year plan. The Knicks have developed through free agency, through the draft, through trades. They have their core, and Mitchell Robinson is a part of that core. He is the last of the 2019-2020 Knicks, Ian. He's the last man standing, and he is somebody who will be vital to this team. I look at the free agent market, the buyout market, the trade market, and I don't see anybody who's matching what Mitch's ceiling can bring. This was somebody who, along with iHeart last year, was helping the Knicks to lead in offensive rebound rate, offensive rebounds, even total rebounds as a team. They were always amongst the 90% echelon. And his defense is without question something that is vital to this Knicks team right now, who's starting to figure it out a bit, but remain inconsistent. And look, Ian, at this point, I want them to hold on to Mitchell Robinson because I do not want him to end up in LA. Because the way things are moving right now, I see, hey, we'll give you Austin Reeves for Mitchell Robinson, and I already know what's going to happen if he goes over to LA. So I think as a GM, their best bet is to stay pat. Because if you're building towards the future, Knicks fans may not want to hear it, but if we're talking about straight business, they're probably not expecting to win a title in this year 1. You're developing a team. This is a whole new chemistry. They've exceeded expectations to this point, I would say, given everything that they've gone through. Yeah, there's been bumps and bruises, but you're talking about a team right now, Ian, I think 11, 12 games over 500. These are first world problems that Knicks fans haven't had this century. So right. When you put that all into perspective, I think their best bet is to hold on to him and get their pawn wars over their bargain basement, roll up their sleeves and find somebody on that buyout market that can help bolster the rotation.
Yeah, to your point, Jeff, we've got a story on SNY.TV kind of breaking down the trade deadline, and the Knicks are going to be able to sign a veteran March 1st. With the prorated salary of March 1st, they'll have enough room under the second apron to go and bring somebody in. They have the open roster spot, so their team salary remains the same after the deadline. That's what you're looking at. And on the court, I mean, we're talking a lot about theory, trade deadline, and that's fun. But this team has been very good on the court lately, obviously 4-1 in their last 5 against that tough Western Conference stretch of the schedule. And Jeff, Jaylen Brunson passed Carmelo Anthony in 40-point games as a Knick. He's 3rd all time with 18 overall. Does that resonate with you? You're talking about a guy who Carmelo faced the team last era. Now Jaylen Brunson, it's his team. Does that resonate with you at all?
Listen, Ian, I'm not giving you no type of toxic humility. It resonates. It rings bells. This man has. Do we talk about exceeding expectations? I think he's exceeded everybody's expectations. He's transcended narrative over him. He doesn't have to wear lifts in his shoes in order to gain respect. You see, he's 6'3", 6'4". He doesn't have to do all of that. We're not talking about his height. We're not talking about his viability as a point guard. At this point, we're talking about, can it get much higher? How high is his ceiling? I think Cassidy spoke about it before. Coming from that Brunson family, mediocrity is not acceptable. Excellence is the standard. And you see it in his game year after year. The more usage he gets, the more burden of responsibility he adopts on his shoulders, the more broad they get, the stronger he gets. This is a dude who I believe him along with Walt, Richie Guerin, Trey Burke for the first, or among the Knicks that have scored 40 points and dished out 10 assists. Passing that Melo stat, third all time with the 30-point, 10-assist game, or 30-point games, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
If you told me Jaylen Brunson was going to pass Melo in anything scoring related, I would have felt ecstatic about the Knicks' chances going forward. This is a guy, y'all was speaking about it before, the mentality and the makeup, the DNA of who can play in New York. I think Brunson is the exemplary prototypical model because this city loves a point guard. And if you're a point guard, he may not have been the type of point guard that people expected to be the prince who was promised to play on this squad, but he's been so much more. Because if it's one thing about New Yorkers, we love exceeding expectations. We love it. And we love even more as an underdog story. And and this was a guy who, how was he an underdog and he was a back-to-back champ? How many chips he won in Villanova? He's raised more banners than the Sixers in the last 15, 20 years in Wells Fargo. Like, this is a guy who everyone said he was a leader, but they didn't think because of his status and his stature, they were like, oh, he could be a career, a solid pro. This is beyond solid pro. He's gonna, if things shake out the way Knicks fans want it to be, and they can achieve that ultimate success, we're talking all-timer here. I'm going to be ahead of the curve. We're talking one of the best players of this era who will be regarded. Probably is going to have a shot at that top 100 players of all time when that comes along. Because when you do it here in New York, it is magnified. You know, LA is like royalty, a legacy. Boston, royalty. New York, it's craving that. But when you achieve it here, it's almost like you get extra experience points.
Yeah, I wish I could go back to the summer he signed, and I probably have them written down, but so many comments from people with other teams and agents just questioning everything about the signing, CAA conspiracies, everything. And couldn't have worked out better.
I know you've seen the meme. We started this show off talking about the Luka trade. Now look at it. No Luka.
Yep.
No Jaylen.
Yeah.
No Kristaps, who's now a champion.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Yeah.
No Quentin Grimes. Apparently.
I saw that.
I thought they was going to be all right in Dallas. I'm like, okay, Quentin is stepping up. Once a Knick, always a Knick, Quentin Grimes. Now he's in Philly and Caleb Martin is going over there. I don't know. Listen, I have to respect people who are in those type of business decision-making positions to where you're going to get vilified and criticized no matter what you do. But man, if it's one thing about the Mavs and Nico Harrison, I do not think they're risk averse at this point. They letting it all ride. They letting it all ride right now. And we'll see. We'll see. Boy, if that was New York, Ian. Woo! Woo!
I remember the Porzingis trade, and it was New York for a few weeks back then. But yeah, I respect anytime a decision maker takes a big swing. No matter how it works out, I respect that because Nico Harrison said it. I could play it safe. I could bring everybody back. I could re-sign Luka. He could be here for life. But he took a swing, and we'll see how it plays out. But I do respect that because you're not going to really get to your ultimate goal without taking a big swing. Kawhi Leonard, Masai Ujiri, you have a million examples. We're going to hit quickly an injury update on OG Anunoby. Knicks, I think, got very good news yesterday because the MRI that Anunoby had, it returns the diagnosis of a mild foot sprain. And it could have been so much worse, you know.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
I think everybody in that arena thought it was.
When you see that non-contact injury, you think the worst. I mean, Les Frank injury, and that's just a tricky area of the body. I mean, I don't think he's going to be – I'd be surprised if he's back before the All-Star break, but just the idea that you avoided that injury where he's going to be out months and now you're talking about, you know, weeks and he's day-to-day. I mean, that's a huge, huge lift for this Knick team because he does so much. I don't think that this injury would impact what they do at the trade deadline at all, because, they'll expect him back again in weeks. I don't want to use that phrase weeks, not months. I think that was used with Julius Randle and didn't work out that way. But
I think that's the only drawback of having two all-star starters. They actually have to go.
Right.
Like, to me, it would be like, let's hang him up. Maybe can't get that bone chip out of his thumb during this time. Rest up. Like Jaylen has to go. This is his first time being an all-star starter, but I don't know. Just say, like, some other guys maybe just rest a little bit.
Carl could hang out, hang back for the weekend.
Yes.
Yeah. He wouldn't do it, but I'm sure Knicks fans would probably prefer that, given how things have gone with that thumb. But credit to him for playing through it. We're gonna go now, guys, to a segment we call the Talkback. It's with digital executive SNY, Matt Spenley, the Big Spend we call him, and he is gonna feed us some questions, and we're gonna get into some of the questions from the fans.
Thank you as always for the intro, Ian. You flatter me every time. Cassidy, I want to come right to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Favorite MSG moment over the years? I'm sure you covered a lot of games there. Anything stand out when you kind of reflect on your time covering the Knicks and games at MSG?
I mean, that I've covered?
Sure.
Or just in general?
In general. If you got another one, that's fine too.
Look, I grew up a Bulls fan. That's like at the heart. So of, me not just being in this business, but me as a sports fan, was being an NBA fan in the 90s. So I'm sure Knicks fans won't like to hear about my favorite moments, but I think you can fill in the blank.
We got it.
Like all the,
I saw the Jordan in the background. I already knew it was coming.
Yeah, so I'll just spare you guys, but just giving you, if you want to know, like what fuels me, that it's that time in my life. So that's the answer for me. But I will say, as terms of what I've covered, I think I've been very fortunate to work Christmas Day now for, I don't even know, 10 seasons. And I've had a good majority of the games at MSG. And I think it's special that the Knicks have, are pretty much like the unofficial host of Christmas Day, because they always open the day. And so, that's not lost on me, because that's like we like to say that that's really the start of the season. And, MSG on Christmas Day is, I think, something that I always look back on when I'm all let my hair, not dye my hair anymore because I'm already gray, but when I'm, gray and old, and think about my time covering this league, that will certainly stand out.
Yeah, that's awesome. A couple years after those Wizards and Thunder games, when the Knicks, I think they lost by about 30 a couple years in a row. We got kicked off Christmas a couple times, but back at it. All right, Ian, I want to talk, because I know you wrote today on SNY.TV about just Mitchell Robinson. We've talked a lot about him on the show, and a lot of the questions are related to that. And you kind of talked about his trade value and how what the Knicks could expect if they were going to trade him. Also, the expectation shouldn't be too high. So I just wanted to hammer on that a little bit more about Mitch's actual trade value across the league.
Yeah, I can't. I'd be lying if I started to talk about specifics of what they could get back, couldn't get back. But if you look at it in a big picture sense, right, no one's sure about his health. There's uncertainty surrounding his health because of this injury, because of the injury history. And he hasn't played. Like, if he was coming off a 3-week stretch where he was playing like the Mitch Robinson of middle of last season, just dominating, the trade value would be strong. But this is not that. And so you look at the kind of continuum with Mitchell Robinson, this is a low trade value time for Mitchell Robinson, and what they could get back, what they can't get back. I'm not exactly sure, but it would not be a strong return. It wouldn't be as strong as it would be if he comes back, he shows teams that he can play, that he's healthy, and then you're having different conversations about Robinson's trade value. And the Knicks front office, just like I'm sure every other front office in the NBA, they don't want to do a deal where you're getting off of a guy at his lowest value, and then maybe you look back on it in a year and he's playing really well, and you're wondering why you got 2 second-round picks for him. So it's just not a perfect time to trade Mitchell Robinson, and I can't tell you definitively which way they're going to go, but I would just assume that the more conservative play is the way they go, which is keeping Mitchell Robinson at the deadline.
Good to know. Jeff, I want to come to you with one about Cat from our guy, Robert Cross. Robert first thanks Ian for his outstanding coverage this year. Any merit to Cat having surgery on his thumb this winter to be more healthy? So, Ian, I'll ask you after that. But, Jeff, I just want to know, Cat in general, I mean, he shot 20% from three since he's had the thumb injury. I think, it's kind of been his first rough patch of the season, and he's obviously been tremendous this year. But just your thoughts on Cat moving forward. Do you have any concerns about that thumb as we kind of get into the full second half of the season?
Yeah, I have concerns. I have general concerns. I hope that it doesn't get worse. I think all indications, because I'm not Dr. Johnson, I'm just Jeff, right? So from what they're saying, it can't get any worse. That's why he doesn't have to have the surgery right now, and it can heal. But if anybody who's played basketball knows, if you have a finger injury and you keep playing basketball, it's not gonna heal as quickly as it should. But the one thing I will say about Cat is, despite his dip in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage over this span, he's still one of the best players I ever seen using 8 fingers, because I think his middle finger on his left hand has been taped up. He looks like Rick Steiner out there wrestling with his fingers taped up, and he's still out here dropping 20 plus games. Like, guys, we've gotten to the point where a 22-9 game from Cat is like, he's really off tonight. Like, this is where he's elevated his game to a point that, once again, I didn't expect, especially with the narratives that were surrounding Cat coming into the trade in this season and after it was executed. And I realized a lot of it was not really about basketball. It was about personality clashes and all that other garbage. And the thing that I will say is, New York, I never seen this before with an athlete. I feel like New York and Cat have a symbiotic relationship, where the city needs Cat as much as Cat needed the city in order to raise to the next level. He embraced it like no other. I think he's comfortable with himself, and he's actually embracing who he is as a person and a player. And this has been the environment where he's been able to thrive. Ian, Cassidy, when have we been able to say that in the last few years? You want to talk about a culture shift here in New York? These are all the pieces of evidence that you need to see that there has been a shift to where the Knicks are one of the best run organizations in basketball, one of the best teams in basketball. And Cat, I hope he's not partying too hard in the Bay Area this weekend. He can get some type of rest on the thumb, but I do think he's going to get used to it. He looks real better. He looks way better than he did when it first happened. So I don't have too much of a concern, other than I hope nobody else tries to hit his hand purposefully and tries to make it worse. That's really it.
I love what you said about him feeling comfortable with who he is. I mean, Ian, you're in that locker room way more than I am, but the times I'm in that locker room, I mean, he comes in all of his, his personality is on full display.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's just in a happy place. Like, he's goofy. He's, and I think having teammates like Josh Hart and Jaylen who lean into the goofiness, allow Cat to be his full goof, if you will. And so, the vibes are immaculate from the inside out and from the outside in. And, you just hope that they can continue feeling good mentally, but also physically.
And Cassidy, if you believe anything Zodiac related, they have a very compatible relationship amongst the starting five. We got Scorpios and Cancers and Virgos. Shout out to the.
I didn't know we were going here.
Wow. I can't take full credit. There's an account on Twitter, X, whatever you're calling it nowadays, that they equate NBA talent and free agency to their zodiac signs. And they said this relationship was an A+ between all five. And I could tell you, just from seeing those guys outside looking in, they all complement each other. They're all the same type of guy. I feel like OG is low-key the biggest goof. I feel like OG is the biggest goof out of all of them. The people who are the most quiet are the most goofy.
That from day one. Ian, I think I said this to you. Yeah. I said OG, when he joined the Knicks, is absolutely the funniest guy in the NBA. And everyone would look at me with like 4 eyes. I go, then you just haven't had a conversation with OG. He's the type of guy where like straight face and you just laugh. Like
Yes.
it's
like dry humor.
And, like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Ask Serge Ibaka. He'll tell you. He's annoyed Serge Ibaka to no end.
That's so funny, man. The sign.
Yeah, it's all out there. Yeah, I love it. All right, I got one last one for you guys, and it's for Ian, because we started out with the Luka stuff and everything. And Ian, I know you've been covering the Knicks a while, so I got to know, what's the most shocking moment as you've covered the Knicks, whether it was a surprising transaction, something that happened that stands out in your mind that you maybe have a story that you'd like to tell during your time covering the team?
I think we all knew the Carmelo trade was going to happen, or probably going to happen. I think everyone thought Jeremy Lin was coming back no matter what. So that's one where even the Knicks thought, like, we're going to bring him back, obviously. And that was one where it was it was so crazy that I believe when the Rockets were trying to serve the offer to the Knicks, Glenn Grunwald, I think, was running around trying not to accept that offer. And it was just something that no one locally expected, that Lin wouldn't be back. And then just tells you that you never know how things are going to play out in pro sports. I do remember being at the practice facility one day, getting ready to leave. Mike D'Antoni had just conducted practice, had just talked to the media, and then he 20 minutes later resigns. So I turn back around and go back to the practice facility. That was a wild one too, but that's what you can count on. Expect the unexpected with the NBA, with the Knicks, with all these teams. That's what makes it fun.
That's what makes you the best. That's what I got, guys.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate you. We're going to get
the best. You are the best, Ian.
Oh, Cassidy. Very sweet. And I'll tell you this, it's a full circle moment for me, because at ESPN way back, I was blessed to do some digital videos with you way back when. And I will tell my grandkids about it one day. I really appreciate you guys. Really appreciate your time. I'm just going to ask for one word answer here, and we'll get you out of here. Cassidy, do the Knicks make a deadline trade? Yes or no?
No.
Jeff?
No.
I'm going to say yes, Jericho Sims, and we'll see how it shakes out. And we'll be back with you guys. Jeff, we'll change your answer. It's all good. We're going to be back with you guys on the Putback tomorrow, February 5th, 1 p.m., Thursday trade deadline day, live at 2:45 to react to what happens and what doesn't happen. So be sure to check us out there. Cassidy Hubbarth, Jeff Johnson, thank you guys so much for your time. And for everybody out there, we hope to see you soon.
Cheers to a great day and this ice-cold Corona.
You know what would make this day even better? My grandma's carne asada.
Or your grandma here with us, making carne asada.
She does love a cold Corona.
Throw in some dancing.
Oh, we can watch the game.
I'll drink to that.
So a backyard concert with football, food, dancing, and Corona?
And your grandma.
Or we could keep it simple.
Simple is good. Want a Corona?
Thanks. Salud to the perfect day.
Corona, la vida más fina. Get your Corona at ordercorona.com. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer, imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.